afternoon and then maybe later in the day. And maybe we have others coming from near and far on our live stream. And those of you who are joining us on Brookline TV, welcome to you as well. Welcome to our home. I'll be accompanied by Rabbi Jethro Berkman, my husband, who very fortunately plays guitar very well. I do not play guitar at all. So we're a good team for these services. So I hope you enjoy our service. And tonight, as always, I invite us to start by just settling ourselves in, just taking stock of how you're feeling and where you might need to maybe relax some tight muscles, relax some tight thoughts, loosen yourself, open yourself. You know, our sages believed that we receive a neshama yitera, an extra soul, on Shabbat. And what is that? You know, and I read a teaching by Rabbi Art Green that it's a part of us that we always have within us, but it's hidden. And on Shabbat, and especially when we sing Lecha Dodi in a little bit, we urge that extra soul to come forth. So think about a part of you that maybe has been a little bit covered up and constricted this week, and that maybe you could welcome in. Maybe a really wonderful part of yourself that just hasn't been fully there this week. Maybe it gets covered over by stress or anxiety or fear or sadness. Just let your whole self be here tonight, and let's take a few breaths together. I think that helps us be more together even when we're together in this virtual way, not in a physical way. You're welcome to close your eyes and just notice how you're feeling, and take some really deep inhales and some complete exhales. And in a moment, I'm gonna sing us into Shabbat with a wordless melody, the nigun of Shalom Aleichem. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, dai, yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Ya, dai, dai, yai, dai, dai. Ya, da, dai, 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 da, dai, da, dai, ya, da, dai, ya, dai, 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 dai. Ya, dai, dai, dai. Ya, dai, 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 dai. Ya, dai, 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 dai. Ya, dai, dai. So, just as we are about to light candles, I invite you to imagine that you are together in person with this community, that we are sitting next to one another in the chapel or the sanctuary, whatever you want to envision. This week, we were able to get in touch with that longing to be together in person in a new way, because we recalled the ancient tragedies of our people, as well as more modern tragedies, with the holy day of Tisha B'Av, the sacred day of mourning. And now we're entering into the 11th of Av. That was the 9th of Av, and now we're turning toward hope. This Shabbat is called Shabbat Nachamu. From the words of the Haftorah, we read this Shabbat when the prophet Isaiah brings words of comfort to the people. Prior to Tisha B'Av, we heard words of admonition. Now we hear words of consolation. So I want us to enter into that space of comfort. And yes, we're filled with longing. We want to be together in our sacred space, but let's really be in touch with how we can make this space between us, even across many, many miles, be a sacred space as well. And I think we can do that by bringing our kavanah, our intention, to this work of being a holy community. And I think we can really be with each other in a deep way, even while we miss each other's physical presence. So going to light the candles now. If you're following along in our book, The candle blessing is on page 2. And when we bring that warmth towards us, we bring that light towards us, perhaps we can think again about that part of ourselves, that neshama yitera, that additional piece of soul substance that comes from the divine essence that we want to make space for this Shabbat. Perhaps it's gotten covered over by restrictions or constrictions. So let's bring whatever that is in towards us. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. We'll turn to the words of Shalom Aleichem on page 24. With everything we sing tonight, if you're not familiar, please know that you are welcome to bring your voice to these words and melodies in any way that you feel comfortable. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So as part of helping us feel more connected as a community, I'd like to start a new tradition. I've done it here and there, but just some shout outs to those who are have something special they want to celebrate, something they want to share with the community. So I know of one person who is celebrating a really special birthday today, and that is Shelly Robbins. And I don't think she'd mind me saying that this is her 70th birthday. And we were talking earlier about how it's a pretty cool number. 7 has a beautiful symbolism in Jewish tradition, so I think 70 is bound to be a good year for you, and we wish you much blessing, Shelly. If anyone else has a birthday or anything else that you'd like to just kind of hold up to the community and share with us, I invite you to put that into either the Zoom chat or the Facebook chat if you have access to those. And I know that not everybody does, and we're going to figure out a way so that more people can be included. But for now, please do feel free to share, and then I can highlight that for everybody. So this week, when we gathered for Erev Tisha B'Av to observe that day of mourning in community, and we joined with Temple Israel and Temple Sinai for that observance, and we had the opportunity to sing a contemporary song based on a very ancient words, and that is Hashiveni. Now, you might be thinking, oh, I've heard of something like that, but that's Hashivenu. And Hashivenu Vinashuva Chadesh Yamenu Kekedem. We sing it in the Torah service. We sing it in the High Holy Day season, and that is a song of saying, God, please let us return, and we will return to you. We are, believe it or not, now that Tisha B'Av has passed, we've entered these 7 weeks of comfort that bring us to Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is only 7 weeks away. 7 more weeks to the year 5780. So Micah Shapiro and Aaron Alpert are two people. Micah is a rabbi, and they composed a little bit of a different twist. Hashiveni ve'ashuva instead of Hashivenu ve'nashuva. This means receive me back. Help me return so that I may return. Chadesh Yamenu Kekedem. Renew our days as you did before, or here, renew our days to their essence. So you see it on the screen. It's a beautiful melody. So I invite you to join in as it feels comfortable to you. But I thought we might start these 7 weeks by singing this beautiful new melody together. So I'm so glad that we are going to move through these 7 weeks together as community, and we're going to enter into the year 5781 connected to one another and connected to the millennia that precede us, connected to our ancestors who moved through Jewish time for generations in the same way we do. So I welcome you in now to this season of turning and returning to a part of yourself that maybe is estranged, returning to wholeness in relationships, whatever it is you're turning toward in this upcoming season. I wish you a smooth return, and I pray that we can do it in community. So we're going to turn now to Lecha Dodi and welcome perhaps that bit of us, that Neshama Yitera. Before we begin that, there is another simcha I heard about that I want to lift up for the community, that Heather's son turned 1 month old on Wednesday. Awesome. Happy 1 month birthday, little man, and many, many more. So we're going to turn to Lecha Dodi and welcome our extra soul. So here's a cool teaching that I heard from Rabbi Art Green, that maybe we can understand Lecha Dodi as a flirtation song between the self and the extra soul, in which the extra soul is coaxed to emerge from its weekday hiding. So as we sing Lecha Dodi, which will be starts on page 20, and it's verses 1, 2, and 5, and 9. When we get to verse 9, if we're able to physically rise and face the door and bow to greet that beloved Shabbat, then you may do so. But maybe we want to think that it's that extra soul we're coaxing to out of its weekday hiding. What might you coax to emerge from within you? And what special part of you do you need to spend time with this Shabbat?
Shmor וזכור, זה דיבורך,
about what is it within us that we need to coax out and to welcome. And my dog Coco took that to mean what squeaky toy should she pull out and squeak very loudly during L'Chad Odi. And I'm sharing that because it's not the first time she's done that during L'Chad Odi. This time it was very loud and continuous, and you may well have heard it. She really connects. What can I say? I think she really took my my little kavanah there about that extra soul and took it to mean an extra toy. So I hope you didn't mind that extra accompaniment. And I think Shabbat feels very welcomed. So I want to share just that I read a teaching by the Hasidic master, the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement. And he said that the world is full of wonders and miracles, but we take our hands and we cover our eyes and we don't see anything. So I want to ask you, what is it that you maybe are not seeing? Just like that part of ourselves that maybe is hidden and we want to give it some space this Shabbat. Perhaps you've had your hands like this in some way. And if you move your hands just a little bit, what is it that you may have missed that is actually just wondrous, miraculous part of creation? So we're going to sing our Ma Gadlu round from Psalm 92, expressing awe and wonder. And if you can share in the chat, if you have access to Facebook or Zoom, and you want to share something that has perhaps been a moment where you maybe saw through those fingers that you had been holding up, you noticed something that made you say, wow, even if you were having a bad day. Maybe we can do that. And I'm going to share that we started a little vegetable garden this year, and we've never successfully grown anything before, but we've actually had a little tiny harvest of some ground cherries, those husk cherries that have the husk around them, and they grew. It feels like such a miracle. I can't believe you can plant something in the dirt and give it sun and water, and sometimes some fruit will emerge. So that was my moment of wonder. And if you have any, feel free to share it or just share it privately. But we're going to have that as our intention, that sense of awe. And we'll turn to the top of 342 if you're joining along. Maybe you feel like just singing Hallelujah, or maybe you're going to sing these words, Ma Gadlu Ma'asecha, Ya, Me'od Amku Machshavotecha. These beautiful words from Psalm 92, expressing just how taken aback with awe we can feel if we let ourselves at the wonders of this universe. I invite you to rise in body or spirit for the Baruch Hu on page 28. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch
page 30 in the book, towards the bottom. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב ערבים. And we give thanks for the beautiful gift of Torah, that is the gift that manifests God's everlasting love for us. We're on page 32. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam So that first line of Shema comes right from this week's Torah portion. And now we chant these words, V'ahavta, also this part of the Shema from this week's Torah portion, which we'll be hearing more about in a little while. We're on page 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בעם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם. And before we move into Michamocha, because this is the Torah portion in which we read the Shema, some parts of it, I wanted to share a few words from the poetic interpretation by Marge Piercy. She writes, "Hear, Israel, you are of God, and God is one. Praise the name that speaks us through all time. And v'ahavta, so you shall love what is holy with all your courage, with all your passion, with all your strength. Let the words that have come down shine in our words and our actions. We must teach our children to know and understand them. We must speak about what is good and holy within our homes, when we're working, when we're at play, when we lie down, and when we get up. Let the work of our hands speak of goodness. We should love ourselves, for we are of God. We should love our neighbors as ourselves. We should love the stranger. Let us remember and strive to be good. Let us remember to find what is holy within and without." We turn to Michamocha on page 40 in the book. Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, oh seifele, sing at the top of page 42, Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chayim. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Go to sleep tonight. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Go to sleep tonight. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chayim. We'll close this blessing on page 42 at the bottom. Ushmor tzeteinu vo'enu l'chayim u'le'shalom me'ata v'ad olam. Baruch ata Adonai haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. So we're going to turn to the Amidah. Rabbi Art Green says that it is while saying the Amidah that our heart opens and our most private longings commingle with the ancient words to create thoroughly Jewish and yet thoroughly personal prayer. So I'm going to give us just some moments of silence this evening after we sing Adonai Sifatai, which some of you have learned in some of our sessions this week that comes from Psalm 51, a psalm that speaks of the broken heart and the openness that can be found in the broken heart. We'll pray that we can open our lips and adequately be able to connect and give thanks and just feel at one with the divine. So we'll be on page 46. I invite you to stand in body or in spirit, and then we'll just have some time for a silent Amidah tonight. Anything from pages 47 to 60 in the book, and absolutely anything within the text of your own heart. And then we're going to do something a little different. We're going to close out the Amidah together by singing the melody we often use on the High Holy Days. I believe it was written by Cantor Rabbi Solomon, the Modim blessing, the thankfulness blessing. We'll do that at the end of the Amidah for thankfulness, and then we'll give our blessing for peace with Shalom Rav. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. you to call to mind or heart, I should say, something for which you feel very, very grateful in this moment. And we're going to just be thinking about that as I sing on page 58 at the top, Modim Anachnu Lach. We are grateful to you. Modim Anachnu Lach, Modim Anachnu Lach, Modim, Modim Anachnu Lach, Modim Anachnu Lach, Modim Anachnu Lach, Modim, Modim Anachnu Lach, Modim Anachnu Lach, Modim Anachnu Lach, Modim, Modim Anachnu Lach, Modim Anachnu Lach, Modim Anachnu Lach, Modim, Modim Anachnu Lach. On Shabbat, we bask in our blessings. We connect with a sense of abundance and gratitude for what we have. We know, though, that the world does not have enough peace. We taste the world as it could be. That's the ideal of Shabbat. But we know that the world is not in reality as it should be, and it needs us to help make it so. So we're going to sing our prayer for peace. Shalom Rav on page 60. Abundant peace. Shalom Rav. We hope will come upon us and all of the world. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Etov Ketahu Melech Adon Lechol Hashadon. Longtime members is giving us a gift tonight by sharing her thoughts on this week's Torah portion, and that is Linda Hoffman. Many of you know Linda. She's been a member since 1976 of Temple Ohabei Shalom, so long before my tenure. But I know that the Shema has always meant a lot to Linda, and I also know Linda to be a uniquely spiritual person. So I was thrilled when she said that she wanted to give the Devar Torah this week. Both because the Shema is within this Torah portion, but also it was just recently the anniversary of the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and she's going to tell us more about that. That is something that Linda has connects to very deeply and has done a lot of work around. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Linda. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for, oh, this is exciting and nerving. Shabbat Shalom. Of course, she introduced.
Linda, you're actually muted right now. We heard you and now we don't hear you.
Oh,
There we
okay.
go.
Shabbat Shalom. This is exciting. My name is Linda Hoffman. I've been a member since 1976 when my son was needed to be in, never mind. I have a couple of disabilities, amniotic band syndrome, and adult with cerebral palsy, which is now CP and aging, and nonverbal learning disorder with, I think this is not the one, and with which I was diagnosed at 60 and causes problems with reading, understanding, planning, and decision making, and other executive functioning, as well as social. Despite my disabilities, I managed to go to graduate school to become an employment specialist. This allowed me to work with people with disabilities, helping them get ready for employment. However, when this proved to be difficult due to the nonverbal learning disorder, I had to resign, and it was awful. Though I resigned from my job, it isn't in my nature to slow down. I had to persevere. I had to persevere. That's in my nature, always has been. I became an advocate for disability rights, service, and benefits as the MBTA and housing was becoming a problem. People with, and as my big mouth became an issue because I was yakking about housing and the MBTA as my disability was getting worse, a disability community came to me and said, there's some kind of cuckoo problem here. What is your and though I resigned, it isn't in my nature to slow down. I became an advocate, and the people with disabilities came to me when I shouted out my disfavor with housing and the MBTA, saying that they needed my help. We took over the State House in 1991 when the 8 nights and 9 days as a civil disobedience. The outcome of that was we managed not to get medication changed, and we did not get, we managed to keep most of the personal care assistance program intact. I also was an advocate, an activist for the passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act and implementing it as well. Just this past Sunday was the 30th anniversary of civil rights for different abilities. That's the new word for people with disabilities. There are 5 titles to this law. The first one is employment, and it requires reasonable accommodation for people who are otherwise qualified for the job. Title 2 is government, that the government has to implement and provide reasonable accommodation for any person with a disability. Like if you saw the governor or the mayor or anybody else, they had a sign language person doing sign language so that the deaf could understand what the governor and mayor were doing. That is one of the requirements. Curb cuts, having a new entrance. There are so many things that the government has to do, still has to do. Reasonable accommodation is the third, meaning public accommodations, public entities, anything the public, anywhere the public can go, people with disabilities are allowed to go, regardless of their equipment, regardless of service animals, regardless of whatever. The people who Title 4 is telecommunications, which provides reasonable accommodations for people who are blind, visually impaired, deaf, or hard of hearing, or have difficulty using their hands. There are all kinds of ways of using, let's say, a computer. You could speak into a computer. You can listen to the computer. You don't even have to use your hands for a computer. There are ways of using a television for the blind, the deaf, and people who can't use their hands. My handicap with reading is that I need large print reading. Nothing else works. And that is a major difficulty. I also have trouble reading for meaning. So I've had difficulty reading the books that Rabbi Schaefer has. One was in regular print. The other one I couldn't read for meaning. I read a different book of Kendi and I couldn't read it. The fifth, a part of the fifth title is that anybody who's recovering, and that's the key word, recovering alcoholic or has recovering drug addiction, has to go to AA or CA in order to keep their keeping it recovered. I'm sure at this point, because I haven't read the updated things, I was also, and the exciting part of ADA is that it's a living document. But also in that we are continuously implementing it unlike the Civil Rights of 1964, which is written and it hasn't been implemented. We learned our lesson. A gentleman, I don't know how many have heard of him, John Hockenberry, who has won a couple of Pulitzer Prizes in his work as a news reporter in the Gulf War, and a Pulitzer Prizer in Dateline as he reported about discrimination against housing, work, and transportation for people with disabilities. He's in a wheelchair. Said in his memoir, Moving Violations, America has the laws, but not the attitudes. The Middle East has the attitudes, but not the law. The Middle East, in American society, people think they mean well. This is what I wrote. One without the. Oh, I did it. Go ahead. The original one. As John Hockenberry, the Middle East, John was treated in the Middle East as if he belonged there in a wheelchair, be damned. It wasn't significant to anybody. But in America, people won't get out of the way. They just, they'll slam the door in the wheelchair user's face or somebody who has a dog. Sometimes people mean well, but they can be very insulting. Not yet. Go Okay. We have technical problems here.
Linda, I know you wrote a lot about some reflections on the Shema, so I think that part is next.
That's next. Yeah. Okay. When I began attending synagogue in the 70s, I learned that advocacy and activism I've been doing for so long was actually doing mitzvot, the sacred obligation of Jewish tradition. In studying Torah, I learned that every human being is created in the image of God. And when we fight for the rights of people, and when we work for the more inclusive society, we are acting in accordance with the Jewish values. I don't know how I survived, but people with disabilities are like everybody else. They can be as insulting and have the same rotten attitudes as anybody else. And I've experienced it firsthand. The green, black stuff. That's plain. And it affected me with my physical disabilities and my NVLD. And not only was I working on community activism and advocacy, but I was working on the synagogue to make it accessible, like the old ramps we had. One was taken down because we have the trust building, and that was a beautiful ramp. The other, I'll have to admit, was disgusting. And
Linda, you have
and prayer has been a source of strength for me for a long time. I think in my 40s or 50s, I don't know. I then came up with a prayer that goes, and the verb depends on my problem. Right now, I'm nervous. So I use, give me the courage, wisdom, strength, insight, hope, and positive attitude and humor. And boy, do I need humor now. The Shema in particular has been very important to me in times of crises. Boy, is this a crisis. Especially the first two lines we say in service. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Shem Melekato Lamed Va'ed. I am very excited to have the opportunity to share some of my thoughts on the Shema this evening. As this Shabbat, we read the Torah portion of, okay, help me on this.
Va'et Hanan.
In which we read the first line of the Shema and the, help me again.
V'ahavta, yeah.
For me, Shema Yisrael, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Means Adonai is everything wrapped up in who I am and what I believe. Can you add, no. Shema is so wrapped up in me that it's like a warm glow that is always there. As I mentioned before, I was deeply moved to learn the idea that I read in the Genesis, the first book of Torah, that every human being is created in the divine image. We are each ordained with a soul, a heart, and expected to live to our full potential. And we have the potential for good or evil. How we choose to live is up to us. And the second part was that later in the Genesis, we read the story of the Tower of Babel, and God dispersed everybody around the world, not just with language, but diversity of race, cultures, religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and different backgrounds. We are all designed in the image of God. I don't care who we are or what we are. It does not matter where we came from. We are all the same. People with disabilities cross all categories, from birth to death, sickness, trauma, pandemics. And in the very distant past, mothers were forced to drown their babies or hide them because they were considered useless or a burden. Then came institutions, foster care, closeting in their own homes. Now there is a whole variety of independent living situations since the 1970s, and then by ADA with services and or other assistance, all individualized. ADA has given us, ADA has given us the opportunities and more laws to live a dignified life like everybody else, and has provided us the opportunities, but we still have attitude problems. Those pages. No, I want the plain papers. Go ahead, continue. My hope is that my hope is that everybody that the preamble, the Independence, Declaration of Independence, the preamble of the Constitution, Civil Rights of 1964, and ADA come to mean something because attitudes of people will also change. No matter what race, color, minorities, immigrants, and face it, we're all immigrants, become equal in the eyes of everybody in the United States and the world. This is what I work for. This is what I pray for. And this is what I believe in.
Linda, thank you so much.
Oh, I had one more.
Okay, sorry, I don't want to cut you off if you have another line.
For the way society can and will become more inclusive of people with disabilities and other minorities. I believe that since we are all created in the image of the divine, I will continue to dedicate my life to the mitzvot our tradition commands us to do, to speak up and speaking out on behalf of people who are minorities. And I am grateful for the spiritual strength I get from our tradition and our community, including the power of words of this week's Torah portion. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Thank you for listening to me, and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
Sorry for the mix-up in pages.
Okay, Linda. Linda, I want to thank you for the work that you do. You're so propelled and sustained by the words of our tradition. And I know that you've studied the Shema and you've thought a lot about it, and it means so much to you. And you said to me, sometimes it's hard to put it into words. We know that your work on behalf of people with different abilities has been so spiritually motivated, even though you didn't know it at first. Like you said, you learned later that what you were doing was mitzvot, were really sacred obligations. So, Yasher Koach to you. It takes a lot of courage to share a Devar Torah with your community and beyond, especially in this strange virtual format. And so I appreciate your willingness to share, and thank you for your work. We're going to move now to the Misha Berach. We're going to say our prayer for healing of body and spirit. Will be on page 253 in the book if you're following along. And please do share if you have a name or names of those you'd like to bring into our virtual space as we pray for healing this evening. You can do that in the chat or simply say it aloud. Even if you're alone in your home, I think there's power in lifting up these names in prayer. So many people are in need of so many kinds of healing. We pray for them with this Misha Berach. complete healing of body and spirit. Aleinu is on page 282. We rise if we're able to rise in body, or we rise in spirit. Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב עיקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגופי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 287. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו We have the opportunity now to say Mourner's Kaddish for those we are remembering on their yard site or in a period of mourning. So I'm going to ask you to share those names. And I know that Shelley is remembering both of her parents this evening. Shelley, if you want to type in their names, if you feel like it, into the chat, and anyone else observing a yard site or saying Kaddish for someone in particular, please feel free to share that. So Shelley is remembering Selma Robbins and Joseph Robbins, her beloved parents, mixed together with the joy of her birthday as this season of their yard sites. So we wish you comfort. So anyone else is welcome to share names as well. And Mourner's Kaddish is on page 294. I invite you to rise if that's your custom. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba, v'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'yizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei d'kudasha b'reichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, d'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Just very briefly, these words by Mary Oliver that I want to offer up as comfort for those of you remembering loved ones. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let go. So just a few announcements. Tomorrow morning, Rabbi Schaefer will lead a study session, and we are celebrating a holiday you may not have known of before. It's known as the Jewish Valentine's Day, Tu B'Av, and it's coming up Tuesday night. And we are going to do something I think hasn't been done before in our history of Ohabei Shalom, which is inviting people to share their how we met stories or how we fell in love. And stay tuned for more information. There will be a message on Tuesday, a special message with music, and actually I think the music went out today in our newsletter, and there will be a program 7 p.m. on Tuesday. Also, you may have seen in our newsletter that a lot of High Holy Day information has gone out, including a video introducing you to some of what we'll be doing during this upcoming season. So please stay tuned for more details and keep checking our website and your email for more information. We'll conclude with Kiddush and Motzi, and then for our closing song tonight, because it's Shabbat Nachamu and we're entering into a time of comfort and consolation, I thought we'd sing the verse from Psalms about Shalva and Shalom, praying that we may know serenity and peace. So we'll use that as our closing song, and Kiddush is on page 5 if you'd like to follow along at home. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh zecher letziyat mitzrayim kivanu v'charta v'tanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha v'yahava uvratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. So I have a little assistant here. Brought me some challah. Thank you, Idan. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lecha min haaretz. Amen. So thank you to Jethro for accompanying tonight. So we'll have one last song we're going to put on the screen. And I wish you a Shabbat Shalom. I hope you'll have some spaciousness in your Shabbat. Let in that neshama yitera, that additional piece of your soul. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you for being with us. Birthday. Happy birthday to you, and Shabbat Shalom to everyone. We'll see you next time.